Hello, travellers. I'm Jo Frances Penn, and today I'm here with Zoe Langley-Wathen. Welcome, Zoe.
Thank you. Hi, Joe.
Oh, it's great to have you on the show. Just a little introduction. Zoe is the author of 630 Miles Braver, Midlifing on the Southwest Coast Path. She's also a fellow of the Royal Geographical Society, an award-winning teacher, and host of the HeadRightOut podcast. So let's get into it. So, Zoe, this book, which I have my copy here for those on the video, is about the Southwest Coast Path. Now, people might not know. So, where is the Southwest Coast Path and how long is it? And why did you decide to finally walk it as a big, significant birthday?
Yeah, great. Thank you for having me on first and foremost, Joe. 630 miles braver. There's the clue. It's 630 miles long. It's 1,014 kilometres for those who are working in kilometres. It starts at Minehead, which is on the southwest tip of England, and it travels all the way down to the toe of Cornwall, where you'll find Land's End, and then along the southwest of Cornwall, Devon and Dorset, and it finishes at Poole Harbour, which is the second largest natural harbour in the world. It's around, I guess Minehead's around 60 miles, about an hour and three quarters southwest of Bristol, for people who need to locate it geographically. And why did I do it? Well, yes, it was to mark a rite of passage into midlife. But I had this moment where I walked into a bookshop in Wells in Somerset round about 2010, and it was like a moment of divine intervention. I walked in and there was this book on a shelf with I swear it was there. I swear I haven't made this up, but there was a shaft of light shining on the bookshelf, and there it was, the Southwest Coast Path Handbook. And I had been searching for a path for a long time prior to that to mark this rite of passage into midlife. And I'd looked at walking Kilimanjaro or doing the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu and other various walks, and none of them seemed to resonate with me. But this particular one just clicked. And the reason it clicked was because I had wanted to do it for about 15 years beforehand, and just never thought myself capable. I mean, why I thought I was capable of climbing Kilimanjaro, but not the Southwest Coast Path, I have no idea. But that was it. In my head, I just thought it was gritty guys, athletic people, strong people that went off and did the Southwest Coast Path. Not me. I just didn't think I was enough in any capacity. And suddenly it was like a light bulb had been switched on in my head, and I grabbed the copy and skipped off to the counter and paid for it and thought, right, I'm going to do this. I don't know how the hell I'm going to do it, but I'll figure it out. And I did. I sort of figure it out along the way.
Yeah, figure it out along the way. It's a story of many things. But just coming back there, you said you were searching for a path for a long time. And I find that a really interesting phrase. And like you said there, you kind of thought about some perhaps more iconic places. But that sense of calling, like I feel like I had that for the Camino for a really long time. What do you think is it in us as humans that kind of calls us searching for a path?
Oh, that's really interesting. I'm not sure that it's necessarily a path that is calling us, but I almost think it's a need to make sense of our lives, coming to 40, coming to 50. It's almost like a turning point. There's a place in our lives where we're pivoting and perhaps needing to re-identify with ourselves. And I just think at that point, I had been mum, I had been teacher, I'd been completely immersed in work for a long time. And I think it was more about me challenging myself and making sure I was able to do something that I didn't perhaps think I was capable of doing in the normal way. So it was something a little bit out of the ordinary. I also wanted to fundraise. So I wanted to make it serve a purpose and do good too. But yeah, I think it's more for me at that time was about searching for another side of myself. Whether I was conscious of that, I don't know, but it was certainly searching for something within me, a stronger version of me.
Yes, we feel like at midlife or at 40 or 50 or these big ages that we want to make a change. Is it that a long walk in particular, we know we literally have to change something, whether that's take, you had to take the whole summer off, or you actually have to plan it out. Whereas sometimes I feel like people go, well, I'll take a week's leave or something, but that's not enough. It's almost like these bigger walks, they're much longer. So we almost need to plan for that pivot. I mean, like you said, it takes what, a month to 6 weeks to do that walk.
Yes, yeah, it took me 48 days to do it. I mean, I think when I was planning for it, I didn't know a lot of the things that I know now about it. I didn't know, I knew I was going to be scared because I was scared. I was definitely fearful, but I think in announcing it at the school I was working at and announcing it to friends and family, even announcing it at parents' evenings and in assemblies, I had accountability then. So there
Mm.
was no backing out. So I definitely knew it was a challenge in that it felt like something that was out of reach for me. And I think that was what I was looking for. If I'm taking a week off work to go and do something, somehow it feels less of a momentous challenge than
Mm.
if it's going to take me 6 weeks or 7 weeks and yeah, and I'm going to do it solo. And that was the other thing. So I did discover that I was carrying a lot of fears in my rucksack that I perhaps didn't realize I knew I had, because these paths have a way of exposing all sorts of hang-ups and yeah, interesting thoughts, as well as sorting out a whole load of other thoughts that you might have. So it might be problems, it might be ideas, creative ideas. I mean, it was certainly magical for that too.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, you can sort of deny your problems and escape yourself for like a week, but 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and all the challenges along the way, it is really hard. Well, let's circle back to challenge. Let's start with what were some of the most beautiful and memorable sections? And I guess we should say that as we record this in 2025, the film version of The Salt Path, which is set along the same coastal path, and the book by Raina Wynn, people might know that, but you can certainly see some of these amazing sections, right? So tell us, what do you remember specifically, the most beautiful, memorable sections?
That, Joe, there are so many on the Southwest Coast Path. It's really, really hard to choose. But I I did live in Dorset for a long time. I lived in Dorset for 30 years, and I have to say the Jurassic Coast,
Mm.
which is about 91, 96, I think it might be 96 miles from Exmouth to Paul, is absolutely beautiful. The geology in that, the stunning scenery, the roller coaster paths. I mean, they literally are roller coasters up and down. They challenge you to your core, but they are absolutely exquisitely beautiful. And it's just hard to believe that nature has produced something so fabulous. The ruggedness of North Devon and Cornwall as well, I really connected with. And again, there are some roller coasters there, particularly around Bude and Zena, which is, so Bude is sort of North Cornwall, one of the first stretches that you reach, and then Zena is down towards Land's End. The quaintness of the cottages, the interest of the architecture, the churches, there's a church on a beach. It's called the Church of the Cove, and oh, St Wynwallow. I think it's the Church of St Wynwallow at Gunwallow. And that absolutely blew me away because it's so tucked away in the most remote place. Yeah, and I love architecture, but I love nature as well. And there was one more place, the Minack Theatre, which is near Porthcurno. That also blew me away. The structure of that. It was a lady built it in the 1930s along with her gardener. So I think she was part of an amateur dramatic society, and she just decided to have one of the performances in her garden. And then she pulled together a ledge and some chairs. And then after that, she started building it more and more. And she carried on with that for about 50 years. In fact, until she died in the 1980s, she was still working on it with her gardener, Rowena Cade, I think her name was. But that, although it scared me having to climb down the steps carrying a full pack, because I don't like heights, I should just say that, carrying a full pack down this narrow and steep flight of steps to get to the bottom, it still wowed me. It still left me in awe how somebody could dedicate their whole life to something that is now such an iconic feature of the Cornish landscape. Yeah, and so anyone performing there is performing with the backdrop of the sea behind them in all weathers potentially as well. But yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, I was going to say, just to be clear, everyone, it's on the coast, at the edge of the coast, right? So you're looking out to
Yeah.
sea. But obviously, it's called the coast path. Are you within sight of the sea the entire time?
I'd like to say yes, but no. I mean, mostly. You are mostly. So wherever possible, they try and keep the path as close to the sea as they can. But I mean, obviously, for erosion reasons, that's not always possible, and safety reasons. Sometimes they have to reroute you inland. So yeah, there are moments there. There are moments where you will go, well, I say moments, miles. There will be miles through woodland and estates where it takes you into kind of very leafy green areas that you do not see the sea, maybe for a whole day, but generally you do see the sea. And to be honest, if you don't see the sea, sometimes well, no, you're going to find things that are of great interest anyway. So whether it's plants, whether it's wildlife, buildings, yeah, one of those stretches, there was another church actually within the first couple of days. And it's a little church called Culbone, and it's in a valley. You just wander down into the dip through the woods, lots of little holloways and brick built bridges from the Victorian times. And then you get down to this church, and it's a tiny church, and I think it housed a leper colony many years ago, but it's just very oldie worldy. You would love it, Joe. The tombs and the gravestones that are covered in all the lichens and the mosses there are, yeah, it paints a very antiquated picture, and it's beautiful. Just a nice energy
Mm.
there.
Yeah, and I guess for people who don't really know England, there are some stereotypes. Obviously, I guess the weather would be one thing, but also people, you mentioned how beautiful the cottages were, and perhaps people think, oh, it's all quaint. So what are the more, I guess, stormy aspects, or the bits where it's just like, okay, this is actually wild? Because some of that coast was famous for pirates and rocks. Like, it's not a gentle coastline, really, is it? It can be quite
But
violent with weather and waves.
yeah, very far from it. Violent, brutal, challenging. Yeah, steps. So steps are built generally by volunteers. So very often they might not be of a standard height. So do be prepared for some steps to be even thigh height. So it's almost like climbing up them. That's where walking poles come in handy. So I found that having a pair of walking poles meant that I could lean on something. It takes the pressure off your knees. They say it takes up to 25% of the strain off your knees, but particularly useful when you're going down steps like that. Uh, yeah,
Bad
a
weather?
lot of cliff, yeah, bad weather. I was going to say there's a lot of cliff paths that maybe have eroded, not to the point where they're collapsing into the sea, but say, for example, steps. Again, if they have eroded away, you might end up with a slope that you have to descend that in wet weather would be quite sticky and actually quite nice to get down. But in dry weather, that creates a sort of a gravelly slip. So yeah, be careful of that. Cows, there's a lot of people who might not like cows, and you will come up against cows from time to time. But yeah, bad weather. My goodness, I mean, I had shocking weather in Cornwall and up on High Cliff, which is the highest point of the Southwest Coast Path. And I, I didn't heed the advice of locals. I would say always take the advice of locals, but I didn't on that day. And I ended up hunkering down on the top of High Cliff thinking, what the hell have I got myself into? And I just had my hood up and poles dug into the hill, and just wanting just to be teleported off the hill. But yeah, I did actually spot some locals and asked if I could walk back down with them, because the wind was buffeting me at least 40, if not 50 miles an hour. It was so strong, and it just didn't feel safe to be up there at that point. So yes, do keep an eye on the weather reports as well, and ask locals for knowledge if you're unsure.
Yeah, I think that's really important because, yeah, I mean, some of the amazing sections in lovely weather are all wonderful. And then, like you say, over six
Oh,
weeks, 7 weeks, there's always going to be issues with the weather. I mean, this is
yes,
England.
yes, yes, yeah. It can't be helped, and actually that creates a whole new experience for you as well, and one that, I mean, people get grumpy about the rain, but actually when you're already out in it, you just accept it, and it helps you to build more resilience and just think, well, actually, I mean, I know it's a cliche, but they say there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad gear. And so if you're wearing the right gear, actually you can get through it. And you generally find there's trail angels out there. There's people who are so kind, and if they see that you're a drowned rat, will very often take you in and say, come on, come and have a cup of tea, dry off for a bit. Yeah, it's quite interesting how many times that happened. Or you just go and hole up in a cafe, because actually you're never that far away. It's not like you're in such a remote place that you're
Mm.
never too far away from civilization. So there are cafes, there are shops, there are people pretty much most days. You'll just have quite a few miles in between where you don't see people, which is nice. I like that solitude too.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, is that this is not a wilderness walk. So even though it's a long walk, it's certainly not away from civilization in any way. And there are pros and cons with that. As you say, you can get a coffee or an ice cream or something. But what are there sections? I mean, because this happened to me on the Camino, it was like, oh my goodness, the industry here is a little much. Like, this is a bit much. And sometimes Devon, Cornwall, these places can be pretty touristy. So any sort of places where you're like, yeah, grab an ice cream and move on as fast as possible because they're a bit too touristy.
Yeah, I mean, most of the big towns, to be honest, the big seaside towns, I felt like that. Torquay, for example. I mean, Torquay, in my head, I had this romantic memory of how wonderful it was, because we used to holiday there when I was a child. And I was really looking forward to walking through Torquay again. But actually, when I got there, it was a bit, sorry to any listeners who are from Torquay, but it just felt a bit sad and unloved. And even though it was summer, and I don't think we even grabbed an ice cream there, we just ploughed on through. There was another place, I forget the name of it now, but yeah, probably North Cornwall, and I there's a beach where people can park on the beach if they want to. And it looked really lovely coming down from the cliffs into the town. But as we walked through, and I say we because I think I was walking with somebody that day, but as we were walking through, I felt like an alien. I felt like we were being stared at, because
Mm.
carrying this big rucksack, and I wasn't dressed in the usual kind of flip-flops and shorts and bikini top that everybody else was carrying or wearing. And so yeah, that didn't feel so welcoming. But then the majority of places, I have to say, the majority of places did. But yeah, just be prepared to move on through the bigger places and make yourself feel comfortable in the more natural landscape.
Mm.
That's definitely
Yeah, I think.
my tip.
Yeah, yeah, mine too. I think sometimes you just get the energy in different places and you just kind of have to trust that energy. But coming back to some of the challenges, so you've mentioned fear, and obviously the title of the book has braver, so you kind of tackling some of these fears. But one of the big ones is, of course, going solo. So I've done solo walking, but I have not solo wild camped, which I know was a big challenge for you and something that you wanted to face, but is not necessary. So people listening, like, it's not necessary to wild camp on the Southwest Coast Path. There are places you can stay or go in groups, obviously. But in terms of some of the challenges that you faced and being a woman walking solo, like, tell us about that.
Yeah, so that is the very first fear that I had, was walking on my own. And I talk about this when I go and do talks with groups, because particularly guys, they don't realize that as a woman, growing up, we've always had somebody to walk with, because you don't let children go and walk on their own, particularly girls. When I was a teenager, I always had friends with me. In my 20s, I had a partner or a husband. Then late 20s, 30s, I had a child. So I always had somebody with me when I was walking. And I feel almost ashamed to say that I had got to 40, and apart from going to the shops on my own, or maybe going around the park, but I don't even think I'd probably done that. I don't think I had ever actively chosen to go on a walk on my own. So in itself, that is quite a big thing for a lot of women, feeling uncomfortable. I've spoken to women about this. They've said to me, I can't do it. I feel uncomfortable. I feel naked. I feel like people will be watching me. And so that's a real big thing that I now try and promote, to try and shelve, to try and put it to one side, and just gain some of that power back to go and enjoy the outdoors on your own. So there was that. There was obviously wild camping on my own. Camping was a little bit of an issue, but I felt okay once I was in a campsite and I was surrounded by other people. But it took me 35 days to actually pluck up the courage to wild camp on my own. And I think by then it was an almost needs must. I haven't got a choice. I was just plonked in that situation. I couldn't go any further. And I ended up pitching myself between a 5-bar gate and a kissing gate next to a footpath. In fact, that is the front cover of the book. So I am just squeezed in there like a tent sandwich.
Mm.
But again, I think I felt comfortable because I was surrounded by a boundary. I think it was
Mm.
that safety of the boundary. But once I had done it, oh my goodness. So if I could just say about this experience I had that night, I felt very nervous about camping out there on my own for the first time, but I was woken in the night by that telltale tingle of needing the toilet in the middle of the night.
Which happens to
And
most of us.
yes, yeah, particularly, 50 plus. But anyway, so I put it off. I thought about all the things that could happen, or who might be out there, and how would I feel. And I just got myself worked up into a real tizzy. And in the end, after risk assessing for what seemed like hours, about what could happen, I finally unzipped the tent and I gasped. I just remember that feeling inside me of going, oh my goodness, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. The sky was full of so many stars. I had never seen that amount of stars, when there's no street lights, no cars around, and it's a clear night. And yeah, I just promised myself in that moment I would never, ever pass up the chance to walk and wild camp solo ever again, and have a wild wee in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Yes, wild weeing is a thing.
It is a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was the turning point for me, definitely. Yeah.
Mm. And then you also do write about, I mean, you've mentioned their walking poles and your knees, but you do in the book talk about physical pain as part of the experience. I also felt that on my pilgrimages, blisters, all of that kind of thing. But have you, I mean, you do a lot of walking and you've done a lot of walking. So what would be your tips now for people who want to try and reduce their pain, I guess?
Well, I'm going to just put this out there. I still get blisters. It doesn't seem to matter what I do. I still get some walks where I get blisters, some walks
Mm.
where I don't. So I think a lot of it is about combination. So combination of
Mm.
socks, having the right boots, making sure your feet fit in the boots properly. And I actually went for a fitting yesterday for new boots, and yeah, they gave me some really, really sound advice about making sure your toes have got plenty of room. So if obviously it's too tight, you're going to be getting blisters. Lessening the weight of the rucksack is a
That's a
big
big one.
thing. It's a big thing, because more weight on your back means more weight on your feet. But something else I didn't realize is that less weight on your feet, so i.e. lighter boots, can really help with less blisters as well. Keeping your feet as dry as possible, so making sure you've always got a spare pair of socks in the top of your pack that's easily accessible. So when you stop at lunchtime, take your socks off, let your feet air, dry them out, spot powder if you've got some like Dactarian type powder or something, just to kind of keep them dry. And I would then say also ease into the walk. Don't try and walk too many miles too soon,
Mm,
because the last walk I did, I found I was fine for 3 or 4 days. And then the moment I started thinking I was falling behind and I started pushing to do more miles, I cranked it up, I should say, cranked it up too high and started doing 18, 19, 20 miles. And then boom, the blisters came. And
mm,
that was during that first heat wave we had. I was going over Dartmoor and it was just way too hot because my feet were sweating and I was doing too many miles. So yeah, ease into it gently, keep your feet as dry as possible, lessen the weight of your pack, and take ibuprofen. That's the other key tip. If you're able to take ibuprofen, make sure that you take a couple before you go to bed at night, because you will get heel pain, you will get foot pain from that
mm.
constant pounding, and the ibuprofen is just magic. It takes the
Yeah,
pain away and lets you sleep.
yeah, don't underestimate some painkillers and maybe half a shandy or something as well before bed for sleeping. But also, some people might have in their mind like a coastal path along a cliff, but you have mentioned the sort of roller coasters. Like the hill climbs are some of the steepest, aren't they? So talk a bit about that. Like, should people be doing hill climb training before such a walk?
It's definitely worthwhile. Yeah, and if you build it up gradually as well, so weight carrying in your rucksack
Mm,
is going to be and climbing hills or walking hills, not physically climbing, but ascending hills without that in your rucksack is going to make a huge difference. So I would say build up weight in your pack. I've got an iron that I carry with me when I'm training. It's for an Aga, and then it's got extra plates, hot plates that are obviously cold, that fit on the bottom. So if I want to add an extra kilo, I put an extra hot plate into a
and then
bag
if you want to
inside my
iron
rucksack.
something, then amazing.
Well, yes. But it's instant weight in my bag without me having to like rush around filling it with bits and bobs. But yeah, certainly make sure that you do your weight training. What else? Oh, I mean, I think anything over a day is also going to change the dynamics. So if you could go out just for an overnighter somewhere would
Mm,
really help too. And other exercise. I mean, it's not just about walking, it's overall physical strength and stamina. So I practice yoga every day, just 20 minutes. It's nothing mammoth. It doesn't take too much out of my day, but 20 minutes every day. And I'm finding that really gives me the upper body strength as well as the flexibility and the
mm.
stretches that I need if I've been doing walks. And when I'm on a walk, it's almost like that muscle memory. My body and my head remember the stretches that I need to do to make it feel good in my thighs, in my calves, in my hip flexors. Because when we're sat down a lot, which as writers, we tend to be sat quite a bit, yeah, hip flexors and glutes tend to struggle a bit.
Atrophy unless you use them. I mean, that's what's so funny.
Yes,
Yeah. But
totally that.
yeah, I love that. And I think you're really right about saying you must do a multi-day. Like, don't go off and do a 6 week without doing, let's say I did a 5 day. That was my first smaller walk, the Pilgrim's Way, and then the St. Cuthbert's Way, which was like there were 5 and 6 days, I think, and then did the Camino. Because like you say, when you're overnight, there are just other things that you need and you don't really understand unless you do an overnight. And it's definitely scary, and but as you say, it's like one of the best things. And you mentioned resilience there and just the self-development, I guess. But let's fast forward to you now, because it's what, a decade ago?
So it's 14 years since I did the walk, and it took me 4 years and 4 months to write the book. And I would actually say that that was a whole adventure in itself. So yeah, I mean, when you think I could have, how many times I could have walked the Southwest Coast path. I mean, okay, I might have had sore knees, but yeah, there were definitely some real mental ups and downs in the journey of writing the book.
Yeah, and it's got a lot of heart in it. I really appreciate that about it. I think it's really
Thank you.
honest and just a lovely book about that. But as we said, you have done a lot more walking since then, and you're actually planning what is, for some people, in fact, for me, it seems quite an extreme walk. So tell us what you are planning to do. So we're recording this in mid 2025. Tell us what your plan is.
So last year, Mike came to me. Mike is my husband. He came to me and he said, Zoe, if we don't go off and do this walk soon, I might never get the chance to go. And I gulped, because we have both always wanted to walk the coastline of mainland Great Britain. But I could have quite happily waited another couple of years, because I've got another 2 books I want to write in the Miles series, which are some of the other walks that I've done. But so I dug my heels in. I hoped he'd forget about it. And then he came back to me again. He said, come on, we really need to start organising this walk. I should say here, so there's 19 years difference between Mike and I. So I've just turned 54, Mike's just turned 73. And yeah, rightly so. He's concerned that either his body or his mind is going to let him down, and he's not going to get the opportunity to do this wonderful thing that we've both always wanted to do. So I will say I am happy with it now. It doesn't mean I'm not apprehensive. I'm still nervous about certain aspects of the walk, but we are both excited, and we're both in the mode of getting the house ready so we can rent the house out. We anticipate it's going to take 2 years.
2 years.
Seven,
Everyone's like,
two
what?
years,
2 years?
2 years, yes. But 7,300 miles. Mike is on 2 brand new hips. He has tested them out on the Camino last year, and it worked well for him, which is good. So yes, we are taking off. It's not going to be a race. It's going to be 8 to 10, 12 miles a day. It'll be 8 miles a day around Scotland, 12 miles a day around England and Wales, and 8 miles a day for the Southwest Coast Path, which we're saving until last, because that was the very first path that I walked, which is obviously what the book is about. It's also where I met Mike. Sort of a spoiler alert, but not a spoiler alert.
No, not a
Yes.
spoiler. So 7,300 miles. So if people don't understand Great Britain, because of course we talk about England, we talk about UK, like just if people aren't from here, like just explain that.
Yes, so it's Great Britain mainland, so it includes England, Scotland and Wales, not Ireland. Not, sorry, I should say not Northern Ireland,
Northern
not
Ireland.
Northern Ireland. So it's England, Scotland, Wales, and we're not taking any ferries. So we will be walking, we're starting on the western edge of Poole Harbour at the end of the Southwest Coast Path. Instead of taking the ferry across, we're walking around Poole Harbour, which is about 35 miles. So we anticipate that'll take 2.5 to 3 days. We're then heading anti-clockwise, so going east towards Brighton, and then up the east coast, we're going towards London, over Tower Bridge, back down the Thames again, and then up the east coast for the winter. So beast beast from the east, maybe, who knows.
And
But
when will you hit Scotland in terms of the year?
so we're going to hit Scotland at the end of March next year, beginning of April. So there is method in our madness for doing the east coast in the winter. It's so that we do the east coast of Scotland in the summer, where it will be less midgy, and and then we will be coming down the western side, the Western Highlands, during the winter. So a bit tricky perhaps, but yeah, we shall see. Hopefully it won't be too snowy for us.
Yeah, so then everyone's like, but what on earth do you pack for 2 years of walking? Is it just do you change, are you getting things sent at different times, or are you going to buy different stuff along the way? Because you don't want to be carrying winter stuff when it's
No,
summer and all that.
no. So we'll probably start off with winter gear, because we take off on the 4th of October. That's our starting date. We're obviously walking into the latter part of the autumn and winter. We will have a bag each of spare kit for the summer stashed somewhere. We haven't yet figured out exactly where that's going to be. We've got an offer from 2 or 3 different people, but yeah, so there will be kit at points where we can say to people, look, we really need, I don't know, a warmer sleeping bag, or I'm too hot in these trousers. Can you send me my summer weight trousers? Yeah, so they will be with somebody, they'll post them on to us. And we also have an arrangement with one of the shops as well. So as we run out, or
Indeed.
not run out, as we wear out of things, they will send us new kit to our whatever destination we're at that point. We can find somewhere just slightly ahead of us on the trail.
Mm.
And people, I've spoken to quite a lot of people in recent months who are saying, oh, well, we'd be quite happy to come out and meet you, or we'll help you, or you can come and have a shower at ours. So those are the sorts of people that I'll be contacting ahead of time, saying, actually, do you mind if we have a little package sent to you?
Mm. Yeah,
Mm.
because that seems huge. So then how are you a different person from the woman who set off on this walk, who basically couldn't even like do much to
Well,
where
yeah,
you are now? I mean,
it absolutely intense when I think about it now. I mean, that was only supposed to be a one-off walk to mark my rite of passage into middle age, and it turned out to be a whole new trajectory. And I just went on walking each year, facing new challenges, because I think I realized that in having a focus, in having a challenge, in being in the outdoors, particularly in my own space, so with my own thoughts and my own ideas to kind of mull over, I was becoming a more resilient version of me. So when I've been off, even when I've been off on a sort of 5, 6, 7 day walk, I did one just a couple of months ago, I come back and I find that that resilience has topped up. You don't just do a walk like that and then say, yay, I'm more resilient. And that's it. You stay more resilient for the rest of your life. You need to maintain it, and it
mm,
needs topping up. So I find that a big walk will last me 2 or 3 months. It boosts my confidence. It does something to, I get imposter syndrome quite a bit. I don't, some people don't like to call it that, but yeah, definitely a belief in myself wavers quite a bit throughout the year. And then I go off on a walk and suddenly I feel like I can face the world. Yeah, so there's all sorts of things that come into play there, but resilience is the biggest thing. And I guess that's why I do it. But we love being outside as well, and
yeah.
appreciating nature and seeing the things that you wouldn't normally see when you're driving. And although I am an introvert, I still love to meet the people on these walks, because if you're out walking, you're generally meeting other people who have a frame of mind and a similar interest to you, because you're both out in the countryside walking. So yeah, we tend to meet some amazing people, and some of those people are best friends now. Yeah.
And so if people want to follow you and Mike virtually, not physically, are you sharing this along the way?
Yeah, we will be. So I've got a little flyer here. So we're called One Coast Any Age, a Head Right Out adventure. So Head Right Out is my little brainchild, my baby that has been going since 2019. So they can go to headrightout.com and
I've got
find
one
more
too.
details there. We're on Instagram and Facebook at Head Right Out. We're just keeping it simple. Everything is at Head Right Out, and you'll find all the information there. So we're walking in aid of Dorset and Somerset Air Ambulance as well. So there's information on the page if people feel like they want to go and have a look at more about what they do.
Fantastic. Right. Well,
Thank
this
you.
is the Books and Travel podcast. So, what are a few books that you recommend, either about the Southwest Coast Path or long distance walking in general?
Oh, do you know, this had to be one of the hardest things that I needed to think about, because if you could see my bookcase, it's full, absolutely full of adventure memoirs and walking. And so yeah, I've really had to kind of finely tune this. But the number one, I know it's been said before on your podcast, but it has to be The Salt Path by Raina Wynn, because that was the book that triggered my realization that I had a story to tell too.
Mm.
I really connected with Raina's story. So yeah, it connected with me on so many levels. And then my book number two, also by Raina Wynn, would have to be Landlines. So this one is not about the Salt Path, the Southwest Coast Path. This one is about walking long distances around the country. So starting from Cape Wrath and working their way down through the country. And again, it's the beauty and the connection with these long distance paths and the humor in it as well. Have you read Landlines?
Yes, yeah, I have. Yeah,
Yes,
good
yeah,
book.
yeah.
Yeah.
I found some really yeah, some gentle humor in there that I really appreciated about other walkers and their view about them walking and who they were. Anyway, I won't spoil it for anybody. Wild by Cheryl Strayed. I know that's also another one that you've had. And I was trying to think of different books. I do have some different books to recommend, but those are my top three. So Wild by Cheryl Strayed. I definitely resonated with the rawness and the honesty
Mm.
in Cheryl's book. I think I understood the healing that she experienced while walking long distances, experienced grief when I was walking the Southwest Coast Path. And so I definitely felt that. Ursula Martin is my number 4. One Woman Walks Europe. Ursula, I should say, is a friend of mine, but I have read One Woman Walks Wales, which was her first book, and her second book was One Woman Walks Europe. And just the intensity, the almost incomprehensible nature of walking for years from Ukraine to back across the whole of Europe to Finisterre and then on up to Wales. And it just happened to end up through the COVID years as well. So it's how she navigated being told that she had to go home, lock your doors and go home, and don't, when she is actually essentially homeless because she's transient, she's a traveller, she's walking. Where does she go? So that
Mm.
brought lots of thoughts up about how you manage as a long distance walker. And my number 5, I'm sneaking in 2 here because I'm just finishing Simon Armitage's Walking Home. He's mentioned in The Salt Path, and I realised I'd never actually read a book by Simon Armitage, which I felt really ashamed about. So I read it and I've been really enjoying it. I'm on the last chapter. So that's where it's actually quite funny in places. He's walking home penniless along the Pennine Way as this troubadour who is reciting poetry in village halls and pubs and homes and having money donated to him. But yeah, that's a good one. But my last book I read before that was Windswept by
Mm.
Annabel Abbs. Have you read this one?
I've got it. I've actually got it on my
Oh,
list. Yeah.
yes, I love it. I just really enjoyed the exploration and the research that she had taken the time to delve into with each of the women that she writes about. So there's Nan Shepherd, who is an author back from the 30s, who wrote The Living Mountain in the Cairngorms. She talks about her. She talks about Daphne du Maurier and her friend Clara Vivian, I think, who, again, they are women who of their time wouldn't normally be going off doing long distance walks, but
Mm.
they show the appreciation for being out in nature and what it gives them. Simone de Beauvoir, who was known as a staunch feminist and partner to Jean-Paul Sartre, and yet she also, there's this side of her that not a lot of people knew about, how she really connected with the outdoors, but was going out for like 9-10 hours a day,
Mm.
sometimes just to collect her thoughts and sort out what was going on in her head. And that's really kind of how I feel about walking. There's a quote I jotted down about that de Beauvoir came up with. It's, I was walking and the world seemed to open up before me, no longer enclosed or narrow. And
Mm.
it's just like, it's, yes, my world feels so small, and our comfort zones, my comfort zone, it tends to shrink so much if I haven't been doing things like this. And then when I go on a long distance walk, it just opens up before me. Yeah, I just love that quote.
Brilliant. Well, just remind people one more time where they can find you and your book and everything you do online.
So it's HeadRightOut.com, HeadRightOut on all the socials, and the book is available at Amazon, but it's also available wide, so you can go into any independent bookshop, we'll both do that, and ask for 630 Miles Braver. Please support the independents.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for your time, Zoe. That was great.
Jo, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.